This conference will now be recorded.
So I want to welcome everybody to Brevard Business Community, our COVID-19 response team webinar for this week. We're grateful to have our guest speakers with us today. We have County Commissioner Rita Pritchett and Mayor William Capote from the City of Palm Bay. We also have a few other municipalities that are joining us. We appreciate everybody's time because today's discussion and presentations are centered around Brevard's road to recovery and what's happening, how we're working together as a community to recover from all of this chaos. So just a real quick run through. You may have heard this session is being recorded, so we will be sharing the link with all of our partner agencies. Typically what looks like has happened is most of us have then broadcast them out to our folks. They also are archiving them on their websites and YouTube channels, but want everybody to know that it is being recorded. So we will follow up with a link to you as well, since you've registered to participate. As you come in the room, we are muting all participants so that we get the best audio possible out of our presenters, and everybody has the ability to be able to hear very clearly. We ask you to allow our presenters to go through their presentations as much as possible uninterrupted. You can certainly share questions related to the presentations, but we ask you to do that through the chat feature. So if you are online, you have a little bubble in your toolbar that will take you to the chat feature, and feel free to type your questions there. Several of us, my counterparts at all the chambers, as well as some of the other team members, are moderating that chat feature throughout the presentation, and we'll try to answer questions or we'll bring those forward at the appropriate time. We set the meeting to run an hour and a half, although most of them have been completed in about an hour. But we do that just to make sure that we don't get bumped. And we will be following up if there's anything mentioned. If we have slide presentations or backup material, we will send you a follow-up email to everyone who's registered. It will have a link to this recorded presentation, as well as any follow-up materials that may be asked for or be brought up during the session. And then my one last mention, I just want to welcome, in addition to our speakers and our municipality representatives, we also do have two of our local media folks with us today, and we appreciate their participation and attendance. Dave Berman is with us from Florida today, and then Brittany is with us from Hometown News. So we appreciate you guys tuning in as well. But I just want everybody to know that that they're also on the call with us as well. So with that, I am going to start by thanking Commissioner Rita Pritchett for joining us today. Rita, I have the great pleasure of having a shared office space with Rita, a shared office building with Rita here, so I get to see her pretty regularly and work with her staff. But proud to have her representing District 1 on the County Commission, and she also serves as the chair of the policy group now for Brevard County in this time. And so we're going to turn it over to Rita and ask Rita if you will start by giving us some perspective on the efforts that are taking place at the county, any updates that you can provide from reopen strategy perspective, both for county operations, but also looking at how we're phasing back to reopening Brevard County and what's happening on the county level.
Thank you, Ms. Marsha. I really want to start with thanking you first. I'm so glad we got you in North Brevard. And I tell people this often: if you want to get it done, find Marsha Gecky. If she can't get a team, she typically will do it herself. And I think you're the best. And I just want to start out by saying that. I just want to establish that and make sure. I know everybody knows that already, but I just had to say it anyways. I just love you, Marsha. You're a great person.
Thank you.
County, you're welcome. A couple things we did a while ago is we went ahead and extended permit. So if people were trying to build or have something going on and they had the COVID mess, we've gone ahead and extended those so their permits won't expire. We also did away with late fees. If somebody had a hard time paying some things, we got rid of all the late fees that would have gone along with that. We're about to maybe start doing some discussions on waiving some impact fees for a time period that might be COVID related, and that might be something that would also help a lot of small businesses in the future. We're doing a little bit better. We're kind of still in a little bit of an unknowing situation of not knowing what we're going to get hit with soon or whether the governor is going to release another phase soon. But I can tell you, and I know you guys already know this because you're living out there with all those people that are being affected. Now, this is really tough on a lot of people. The county recently got $109 million, and we went ahead and delegated some of that money to reimbursing cities and entities for PPE funds and those types of things they're having to do that's been cost out of their budgets for COVID-related items. We had another $44 million we discussed the other night that we're trying to figure out how to allocate that. We went ahead and designated some of that to Mr. Gold's department, and that's for people needing shelter and food and some payroll help that have dropped through the holes on the other avenues of funding coming from the federal government. We're going to have a big discussion on that about July the 6th. And part of that discussion, too, we have to figure out what we're doing is to do small business help. So, again, that money's not very defined yet as far as where we're allocating it. So any information you guys have as far as things that you need would be a good candidate for us to look at those funds and how to get them into people's hands. That would be wonderful input. And I'm definitely wanting to hear input from the community and you guys. I actually had a conversation this morning with a local hospital, and they need some help with these COVID funds also. So that's what would be good is if small businesses and you guys out in the community would relay some of that information to us so that we know how to help designate this money. The consensus of the commission was to get it into the community, which I'm very thankful for, that we're not going to think about not using it or sending it back or holding on to it. We want to get it into the hands of the community. So if you guys would call my office or maybe Commissioner Smith or Commissioner Usnardi's office and give them some of that information of where you think these funds would help the most to stimulate the economy and help people, I think we would really like to get that information from you. And I think that's my update right now, Miss Marcia. But if you all have any questions, I'll be here in all ears and I'll see what I can do to help you.
Okay, great. Can you talk a little bit about the sort of the structure that you guys have been operating under? I mean, I know there's a policy group that is meeting, and then there's the county commission meetings. But can you talk a little bit about that integration and what that policy group is looking at versus the decisions that county commission are making?
Sure. What we did recently is we were able to downgrade it from high alert to the next level as far as the policy group. And so what that means is we know there's not any impending things that we think are going to be critical within a 24 to 48 hour period, which gives time for us to discuss as a commission of the direction for the county, which is good because that's, open forum, sunshine, and we're able to get more input from the community before we make decisions. The commission right now is, we went ahead and voted to go ahead and try to follow the governor's lead as closely as possible. So that's what our goal is. If the governor starts opening up more businesses, so will the commission. We're not going to put any more restrictions past what he has. Because, Brevard County's done pretty good. If you run the stats, the infection rate in Brevard County is 0.0004%. And that's really low. And the people that have recovered, we might have, as far as documentation, maybe 8 active cases right now of COVID in the whole county. As far as the documented, there could be others. So Brevard County's done very, very well. So again, doing it safely as far as social distancing and people doing the right things, which well, you guys have just done a great job with. I think our county's sitting in a really good position here to start getting a little bit more business active.
Great. And I've seen, before I switch over to Mayor Capote and start talking from the city perspective a little bit, I've also seen, as I look out, we participate on regional calls, statewide calls, et cetera. And many of our counties are the counties surrounding us are putting together recovery, reopening task forces, looking at sort of economic recovery perspective and pulling together sort of a united group and a united front to specifically lay out a plan for reopening and recovering. Is Brevard County leadership looking to implement that or looking at that as an option? And if so, how would you see that? How would you see that happening?
Yes, ma'am, and that is a great target to use moving forward. I do know that the county manager did meet with the mayors and managers yesterday. They're trying to figure out some pathways of how we're going to all do this and hopefully the best consensus moving forward so that we're all on the same page. So I do know that conversation has already started, and because he told me he had a big meeting with them all either yesterday or the day before. So I am just really impressed with the working together through the municipalities and the county. But I'll tell you what, if we need to step it up with another group of business people, I think that would be a really good idea too. So that might be something that I will bring up tonight at the commission meeting and see if this might be something we can use moving forward. But I would love to hear from Mayor Capote, like you said, also, and see if he's got some ideas, because I'm always looking for the government level coming up to this one and how we can serve them.
All right, beautiful. Thanks, Rita. Appreciate that.
Thank
All
you.
right, Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to you now and let you sort of give that broad municipal, city level update. I know some of your counterparts are on with us as well, and we'll turn to them shortly, but I want to give you the opportunity from the League of Cities perspective on how the municipalities are working together.
Thank you, Marsha. It's first of all, I don't want to come off as an expert. I was asked to represent the Space Coast League. And the reason for that is that our president, Yvonne Minus, knew that I had started a meeting with the mayors, with all the mayors, because during this pandemic, I wanted to understand how other cities were working. And we had some dialogue, and each mayor kind of spoke about what was going on in their city. Rita said it best. We are getting ready to walk into the recovery period. It's not that these are mayors talking. I don't know what other council members are thinking, but the reality of the mayors, and a lot of the conversations we have are private, so I'm going to give a summary without names. The reality is that each mayor's had concern about their small businesses in the community. I see that Rita mentioned the funding. That's going to help out a lot when it comes to businesses and people in the community that are hurting. When it comes moving forward, we need to be working more closely together and in unison. I know that the county manager and city managers are going to meet regarding the funding. That's a good plan. I believe that each municipality should be discussing further. I know that certain mayors have been talking with their city managers and what's the next step on what's going on. Within the city of Palm Bay, we are adhering to the 15th, May 15th, and by the 18th, everything, all public access is closed until May 15th. On the 18th, we're going to have a soft reopening in the city of Palm Bay, and by appointment, I was at City Hall this morning. They're laying out that CDC requirement, the 6 foot. The screens are going up, those plastic shields are going up to make sure that we are adhering to everything. I believe every municipality is doing so. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with each municipality about what their plans are, but I believe that everybody is adhering to everything that Palm Bay is doing. So the city of Melbourne, Palm Shores, and so on are doing the same thing. I'm just trying to give an overall picture that, like you said, Marsha, we are in a good position, and Rita said, in Brevard County, to really get through this well if we work together. This is all about working together. It's not individuality. It's about we work together to get through this problem. And this was something that came out of nowhere in a sense, and we've had to face it. But I think that Brevard County overall, because of what we represent, not just to the nation, but we represent to the world, is the economy of NASA. And I think that that particular aspect is going to really help us as a community to get through this. And I want to commend all the first responders that were, taking part in this, and decisions that were made locally by businesses to adhere to the CDC requirements. So overall, I think the conversations we had were very enlightening. Because the beach side, we have different personalities in the county. You have the beach side that had to, the beaches, and they had to deal with that part of it, the traffic, people parking across from A1A and trying to cross A1A. That's another conversation for another day. But I think that every mayor and council and elected official in the county tried to do best with what we were dealing with. If you have any questions of me, I could add a little bit more according to the question, but the conversations that we have as mayors is basically sacred to us because we have a tendency to speak as freely as we could.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I think the most important point out of this all is just for people to realize that those communications are happening, and there are unique situations around the county, but recognizing that all of those elected officials and city managers, government leaders and officials are communicating back and forth between one another and trying to work as closely together as possible, and we appreciate that. Speaking of A1A and the beaches and tourism, I think that we have the City of Cocoa Beach's city manager on with us. Jen, do you want to lead into that one?
Sure, thanks, Marcia, and thanks everyone for joining us. I come to you today from Beachside, my favorite place in the world. So I just want to mention my boss is on, Jim McKnight. He's the city manager for Cocoa Beach, and we've been in regular communication throughout this and some of the challenges that we have been facing here at Beachside. So I would like to introduce Jim McKnight, and he and I have talked specifically about tourism and our plan moving forward with a major launch coming up and kind of how we will handle that in a time of COVID. So Jim, I'll turn it over to you to speak on everything we've talked about thus far and some tourism aspects as well.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it, and hope everybody's well and safe. One of the things that none of us had going into this was a pandemic playbook. We're writing one right now, but it's a learn as you go type thing. To echo what Mayor Capote said, the city managers have been meeting obviously virtually or by phone for about the last 6 to 7 weeks. Most recently, the county manager has come on and we're cooperating with him as well. But we've been covering a lot of subjects, obviously beachside parking, opening of facilities, all of those things were very important in making sure we kind of, every area has differences, but we wanted to make sure there was a consistent message going out for the different communities in Brevard County. We in Cocoa Beach, we have started a beachside task force, which is Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach and the unincorporated areas in between. We've done some survey work and we're trying to hear what people have to say. It is interesting that in our first survey, the most important thing that people were trying to deal with was in their business was social distancing, how they were going to approach that. There was a lot of confusion about that. One of the things we did for the restaurants is we had our fire marshal go around and take our order to them and try to help them determine their numbers and what they could do. And we're trying to be very flexible on outside seating to give more options to our restaurants. Retail stores can be a little more challenging. I believe Ron John's opened yesterday as one example. And I know they're not a 24-hour business right now. They're limiting their hours, and they literally have somebody at the door that when a certain number's in, that's as many as go in. I can tell you that from a information standpoint, that the beachside parking, I know all of our public parking will be open tomorrow, 100%. I know Satellite Beach and Indian Harbor, I believe, are doing the same thing. Indy Atlantic will be 50% Friday and 50% on Monday, and Cape Canaveral, I think they're trying to wait till phase 2, but I don't know if they've made any changes to that. And of course, the county areas are open now as well. So from that standpoint, which was identified as one of the concerns of our business community, that has been opened as well. You know, we're all have our own facilities as cities that we're trying to get open to the public as well. Some have been open. We've been fortunate in that we've been able to keep our golf course open the entire time with a lot of limitations. So we're beginning to relax those. We opened up our restaurant recently that we have as a part of our golf course. So we're all trying to do some things that will help, you know, get people back to work. The reference that Commissioner Pritchett made it to the 105 million. There are categories that must be spent on. I am hopeful that we will be able to use some of those funds to assist our business community in the endpoint. That is the decision of the county commission, but we will be getting input into that. So that should hopefully help all of us understand, but we'll be looking to get input, obviously, from all of you as to what are the best routes to take. What can we do as local government to help our businesses? Some of it will be financial that we can do. Some of the things that have been identified. We're talking about maybe extending our business tax receipts, the occupational license, extend it all the way through 21. That way people don't even have to worry about that. They're extended. So there are a number of things to be discussed moving forward. Tourism, obviously, the biggest thing is the launch. And we are, obviously, we have some concerns about the numbers. NASA said one thing and we're saying another. So we're expecting numbers to grow for that. Being in the middle of the week, we're not sure how that will happen, but we'll be ready for it when it does. But as much as possible, we're trying to get businesses going again and getting back to some level of normalcy. It's not normal. There's no way you can say it is, but we'd like to move in that directions as well. But it's obviously important that we hear from the business community. We certainly don't have all the answers. We don't even know all the questions sometimes until we hear from y'all. So make sure that you know, you're giving input to your local government, and don't hesitate. And as a chairman of the chamber this year, I want to commend the staff of the Cocoa Beach Regional Chamber of Commerce and what they have done for our business community over the past 6-8 weeks. Communication has been incredible. We had a virtual Wednesday Friends Day last night that I participated in, which was very nice to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while. But also, they're doing as much as they can to let people know where the resources are. So Jen, Cheryl, Darlene, Darby, you guys are doing a great job, and we really appreciate what you're doing. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have, but that's what I have right at the moment.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate that update. And so I want to now move to, we have Walt Johnson and Scott Larice on the phone from the city of Titusville. And so I want to turn it over to Scott and Walt and let them talk a little bit about if there's anything you guys would like to add from an overall perspective from the city of Titusville and North Brevard area.
Sure thing. Before Mayor Johnson pops on, thanks for putting this together, Marcia. It's a great effort. as you always do, first-class operations. We really appreciate everything that you do for our community. And up front, would like to echo what Jim said. It's been a great team effort between Brevard County and the cities. The EOC, we're used to short duration hurricane operations and that sort of thing, but this is an unscripted, we were prepared for it, but we didn't realize the magnitude or the duration of this event. So it's been great. The EOC, policy group, commissions have all worked well together, and we do appreciate that. So with that, Mayor Johnson's got a few update items for you. And sir.
Hi, Marcia, how are you? I have to echo everything he just said. I don't think he left me much to say, but that's all right. I want to especially say that dealing with the other cities has been very good for us to see what they're doing. And we don't have beaches, so we don't have some of the problems they have, but it's been great. And also with the county, certainly, and the EOC meetings that we have, keep everybody apprised of what everybody's doing, and I appreciate that. Our facilities, specifically City Hall, opened yesterday. It seemed to go well. We do it by appointment, and we had no large crowds or anything. It was steady, but not a flood of people, and I was happy by that situation. Our workers were working remotely, our staff. We returned to full staff on Monday. Everybody seemed to want to come back to work, which I thought was interesting. All city facilities will reopen on the 18th of May. City Council passed waiving certain fees to help our businesses, and I think that's appreciated by the businesses and justified. We have for the restaurants, they're putting up tents outside. If they have porches, certainly that's covered by the current rules. But several of them are putting up tents, open air type tents that are used on the outside, so that's helping them, and we've had no issues with that, which is good. And we're getting ready for the May 27th launch, and we'll be ready for it, although we don't quite know what to expect at this point, as with everyone else, I'm sure. And that kind of sums it up for us, and we thank you for having this telecom very much.
Thanks, Walt. I also know that, and Scott both, I also know that I believe Samantha Singer from the city of Cocoa is on the line. And so I wanted to recognize the city of Cocoa, and if you have anything that you guys would like to add specific to Cocoa.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to hop on here. I wasn't planning to talk, but glad to give an update for the city of Cocoa. So we have been working very similar to the other cities that gave updates. We have been working hard to reopen our businesses safely. We did do some surveys for our business owners. And the biggest message that they want to put out there is that they are following CDC guidelines and they want our customers to feel safe to return to their stores. So we're working with them on plans on ways that we can market them, market that the city of Cocoa is open for business, and work with them to provide things like additional seating, outdoor seating, and relaxing some of our signage regulations. So yesterday, council passed both of those ordinances, one to expand outdoor seating options, and then also to relax some of our signage options to give businesses the opportunity to promote that they are open for business. So we have a task force together of businesses in the Cocoa community that are helping give us ideas on ways that we can assist our small businesses on reopening. So that's the biggest thing we've been working on right now. Like many of the other communities, our city hall is technically still closed. We are open by appointment only. Employees are back in the office right now. Some are still telecommuting. And then we are going to, as of right now, the plan is to open on May 18th to the public. We have opened our parks, restrooms, those types of things are back open again. And so we're kind of playing it by ear and seeing what the next phases are from the governor's reopen plan. And we're here for our business community and chugging along. So unless anybody has any questions, that's the update from Cocoa.
Great. Thank you, Samantha. I really appreciate that. I want to, and just taking a look, we also have Peter Kranis from the Office of Tourism on the line. And so I wanted to ask Peter, I know we haven't, we didn't go over this in advance, but I'm hoping that maybe you will comment a little bit.
That's okay. You can put me on the spot, Marcia, anytime.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, if Peter Kranis is the director of the Space Coast Office of Tourism, and so Peter, you want to talk a little bit about what's happening in your office as far as ramping up what you guys have been doing, and then what's going to be happening ramp up for tourism.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for including me. Just a couple of things, just from the office perspective, we've pretty much been working from home the last 5 or 6 weeks. So starting next week, we're going to be back in the office with all government facilities reopening, or county government facilities reopening on the 18th. We'll be reopening our visitor center in Cocoa Village and ready to receive guests again with, of course, with all the precautions that have been given to us from the CDC and the Department of Health. In terms of, from a tourism perspective, I had a couple of what I call rays of sunshine. Whenever there's a little positive, I always say, hey, okay, there's a ray of sunshine, that's a good thing. March tourist development tax collections came in the other day. And I had been projecting that we would be down about 75% in March, down about less than 50%. And you know, while that obviously is devastating to the industry and to the revenues, certainly on the hotel side, it was a bit of a ray of sunshine, because that puts another $600,000 into our budget, which we can now use for recovery marketing plan and other things that we needed to try to cover. But my overall projection had been that we would be down this year, which our year runs October to September, about 40%. So we'll still be we'll be a little less than that if everything else holds as far as the projections go, and maybe they'll be a little bit better. We'll see as we get into summer what happens with that. But our plans right now, we're looking at really Memorial Day weekend, and of course the launch following as sort of that moment in time that we can kick off summer. We're not going to be doing a lot of what I would call heavy paid marketing prior to that. We're going to be doing a lot of soft types of marketing using social media and digital. But then come June 1st, if everything goes the way that we anticipate, and hopefully there's no further orders from the government or scale back or roll back because of additional COVID cases, we're going to turn on our full marketing on June 1st and run that through as far as we can spend it through July. And try to really push summer as much as we can, because obviously that's when businesses can take the biggest advantage. We believe from our research that people are going to be looking for beach experiences, outdoor experiences, drive market experiences, things that they can drive to. So we're going to be marketing heavily in think about the 50-mile radius around us. And then as we get a little deeper into summer, we'll probably expand that footprint to some of the other cities like Tampa and Jacksonville. But we're going to stay relatively close to home in terms of the marketing, because we believe that's where the bulk of the people will be traveling from. So we're excited to get back to marketing. We're working on the creative right now and the messaging. We've been doing a lot of research. We actually have our own research firm that's been helping us test some of the ideas, and we'll have some of those insights in the next week or two. So that's kind of where we are, and as a top level, happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Peter. I think that's good news. That certainly that ray of sunshine is greatly appreciated. We just had a question actually specific to tourism that just says, how can the chambers help? I swear this was not solicited. How can the chambers help with tourism marketing, because people know people come to the chamber? So do you have any feedback on that, or just a general awareness that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, of course, as you know, we work very closely with all the chambers, with you guys, and we've been sitting in through all of the business calls, recovery calls that we've had together, and we're happy to work with the chambers and incorporate them into our marketing. As soon as we get our messaging, we'll share that with you guys to the degree that you can then turn around and share that through your social media, through your website, through all of the email channels. A big part of us recovering is we have to get the local residents back to doing business. If as restaurants reopen, as businesses reopen, if the locals don't patronize them, if the locals don't, start getting out and doing business with our small businesses, that's going to impact us in terms of tourism as well, because we've got to have the product. I mean, if people come here and they don't have places to eat, places to go, shop, what have you, then that's not a great experience for them. So we really want the locals to get out first, and in fact, that's probably a portion of our marketing campaign that will lead with initially, as I mentioned with the soft start, is just promoting the fact that there are businesses that are now open and they're needing people to come and patronize them, and that's a big area where I think the chamber can help us, because the chambers all can help us, because they have the contacts with not only all the businesses, but also with a lot of individuals, and just cross promoting one another and getting the local market, the local residents out there and spending some money, frankly, because that's what it's going to take for us to get back. So that's a starting point, and then from there, as we begin to do more advertising and paid marketing, to the degree that the chambers could jump in with us and help us get those words out, we are happy to have the help. We're estimating that our campaign is going to be budget-wise about $700,000. That's about what we could scrape together. We literally, we're trying to cobble together every dollar that we could to go towards media, because that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of the messaging. So anything that the chambers could do to help lift those messages, push those out to their audiences, we would love it.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. And this has been really a wonderful collaboration with a variety of organizations. And I know I'm sharing this sort of our graphic on the screen for you guys to see, but literally all of those entities have been working together since the beginning, including the Space Coast Office of Tourism. And those not only includes these webinars, but weekly meetings, and then participation in a lot of other initiatives. So I appreciate that partnership through all of this. I'm also going to call on the EDC, because another countywide agency that we have represented on our coalition, but also on the call right now, and that's Brian Baluta. Brian, is there anything that you guys would like to add from the EDC perspective on an update?
Certainly, and Marcia, thank you for everything you've done to make these webinars possible and bring everybody together. It's really a tremendous service to the community, and we're glad to be a part of this with all the business organizations represented here today. One of the areas, in addition to the dissemination of information with the Brevard County business groups that we've been focused on, is really keeping tabs on our manufacturing community. We've got over 500 manufacturers in Brevard County, and many of them have been operating continuously through the crisis as essential, critical industries. And that's important for a variety of reasons. We've over the past 10 years, we've spent a great deal of time and effort in diversifying our economy so that all our eggs weren't in one basket, so to speak, as they have been in the past. And these are a lot of high-wage jobs at these companies, many of whom are stepping up to respond to the needs of this crisis. One example is Aeron out of Melbourne, who manufactures ventilators, and they've seen a four-fold increase in demand for their products, as you can imagine, and actually had a break in their supply chain, and another local company, JCon, was able to get connected with them and help them fulfill this huge demand for their vital products. So, we've got a great capability in this county now with the diversity of manufacturers that we have, and that's something, as the social distancing requirements are relaxed, that's a lot of discretionary income that's in this community now that's going to help hospitality and restaurants and that entire sector get back on its feet. And we had some great news on April 24th. Sounds very familiar to Aeron, but it's Aerion, which is a cutting-edge aerospace company that's going to be manufacturing supersonic executive jets, and they announced they're moving their global headquarters from Nevada here to Melbourne, and that's 675 jobs, average annual salary of over $100,000, and that's some tremendous discretionary income, $300 million in capital investment coming to the community over the next 6 years. Tremendous vote of confidence in the future of Brevard County. So I think everybody on this call and throughout the county can take comfort in the fact that there's a lot of smart money betting on us, and I think it's a vote of confidence in the local elected officials that we have, as well as the business community and the people here in our workforce. So that's something that we can all feel good about as we get on the other side of this pandemic. Another encouraging thing that we've seen is, as we reach out to manufacturers and find out if they're having any challenges or breaks in their supply chain, we've also found out that there's a great willingness to ramp up and make PPE products that maybe are not part of a business's usual product line. One really encouraging example, Anderson Upholstery had some giant rolls of fabric that they were willing to donate. They were willing to actually make the masks, and Comsys had the rolls of fabric. So we connected those two companies, and they're cranking out masks right now as we speak. So, we've got a great business community here in Brevard County, and I think you hate to have a crisis, shine a brighter spotlight on the good qualities we have here, but it's really coming through, and proud to be a part of it in some small way. So that's what's going on from the EDC side of things.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. And I just want to say, too, from all the regional calls and meetings we've been in, and with the Florida Chamber as well, one theme that we keep hearing is that the more diversified the county and the economy in that county, the better the recovery process is going to be and the less time it will take. So I think Brevard County is in a really good position for that. And we just want to thank the EDC for everything they're doing, too, to keep those projects rolling as we go through this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer.
I would like to maybe, I'm looking at the questions that have been put up here, and a lot of it seems to be surrounding the $105 million allocation under the CARES Act for the county. So Rita, would you mind talking a little bit more about those funds? Hate not to put you on the spot, but a little bit more about those funds, where they're being directed, and then how people can participate in the conversation about how those are directed, if there's any flexibility in there.
Yes, ma'am. The first portion last night, no, Tuesday night, what times are in together, we went ahead and designated, oh gosh, all but 44 million of it to get to the cities and the outreach of people that have had to pay for the PPE, and for some of them that have had payroll problems, for furloughing people that they're employing directly COVID related as far as dealing with the virus. The other 44 million we're still working through, so that's what I'm asking for input on, that if people would get a hold of my office, Commissioner Isnardi, again, she supported it, and Commissioner Smith, so that we can hear where you guys feel like the money would be best directed at. I would certainly appreciate that. We're going to be having conversations about this over the next 8 weeks, and July the 6th is the meeting where we're going to try to designate most of that money and allocate it to the path of these. We really want to get it out into the community as quick as possible. So if you guys have specific areas, we would love to hear. The small business portion is still greatly up for discussion. We went ahead and allocated 10% of it over to what Mr. Gold does as far as shelter and food and some items like that for people that are in the gap and they have no money. So we're doing that already, but we still have the majority of that money, and it's substantial, that we're trying to find out how to best get it in the community. So again, that's still an ongoing discussion. We just started the discussion, but I do know the municipalities and the managers of the county have gotten together and started some primary discussions as far as the small business aspect of this and what we're doing with it.
Okay, so I guess this really sort of leads into a question that we've been talking about as a coalition, and that is there an opportunity for us to band together? I think we're, not only are we sort of Zoom GoToMeeting, virtual meeting out, and a little tired of that, but many of us are getting hit with multiple surveys. However, the opportunity to participate in a survey to feed information to, to the commission, to our municipalities, I guess, would you guys be receptive? I guess that's two questions. One, would our partners that are on this call be receptive to a joint survey to try to narrow the number of surveys that you're being asked to participate in? And then number two, would our commission, in particular, because I've got you on the spot right now, be receptive to receiving that information?
Oh, most definitely. I really want you guys to give me input so that when we have the discussion, we know where to start allocating these funds. So I think we need it. And I don't think county staff's able to do it on their own either. So I'm really relying on you guys to get that data together and give me great input as far as the other commissioners also and what we need to do.
Okay, great. And we are getting some questions about the accessibility of the funds. And I think at this point, there is no mechanism in place to disperse the funds other than what has been identified to go to shelter and food and those kinds of things that you guys decided. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding clearly so that our participants understand clearly. There is not currently a mechanism to disperse funds directly to businesses from a county perspective, but there is assistance being out of that CARES Act from the counties, that the county received. You are looking at reimbursing municipalities for the extra expenses that they've incurred as a result of COVID. Is that how I understand it? You're not putting it through, it's not coming down to the cities and then the cities then figure out how to disperse it. It's specific support to the municipalities for those extra expenditures that they've incurred as a relate of this crisis. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. You have done your homework.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because there are some questions coming in, and I know that there has been a gap. Brevard County exceeds the threshold for participation in the CARES Act, but each municipality did not. So the threshold stayed at 500,000 for municipal governments to receive reimbursement through the CARES Act. So none of our municipalities met that threshold. So I believe what's happened is the county has applied, and then they're recognizing that some of that needs to be passed down to these municipalities that were not eligible for that, those funds on their own, in order to help them with those extra expenses as well.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm just scrolling through. Is there anything, any of the cities? I'm going to let you guys jump in if there's something that you want to add. I can't control it at this point.
This is Jen. Marcia, if I could, just really quick. Hi, Commissioner Pritchett. Thanks so much for doing this with us today. It was mentioned earlier that there were certain buckets where the money that was left had to be spent. And I was curious if there was a percentage of the 44 million that's left that was specifically being eyed for the small business community, or if there was a cap to how much could be spent for those funds.
Am I back on, Marcia?
Yep, you're on. I didn't mute you.
Yeah, that's going to be our discussion on July the 6th. We just went ahead and agreed that we want to use that 44 million as far as the categories they gave us, and one of those were small businesses, sheltering, food distribution, Meals on Wheels, and we had another category, for people who are between the gaps, not getting unemployment and have no income. So we went ahead, and only thing we've done so far is we gave Ian up to 10% of the 44 million for an emergency situation up to July. He'll never use that much, but we didn't want his hands tied if we had a family that was about to be evicted from their home or couldn't pay rent or were already not living in a home. So as far as the 44 million, it is still up for discussion. Staff is supposed to come back with recommendations, and we should have that discussion on July the 6th.
So I believe I have the CARES Act funding options, the staff report from your May 5th agenda. Would it be appropriate that we could share that as a follow-on so people could see the document that you guys are working on for allocation?
Oh yeah, that would be great, Miss Marcia. Actually, do you have the staff report that went out from them?
Yeah, I have the May 5th staff report on CARES Act funding options.
That's it. That would be great, ma'am. That's good.
Okay, so we will send this document out as a follow-on so that you can you guys have it as well and can take a look at what they're deliberating on and what staff has recommended and can provide input. Jim, I see you've unmuted. What have you got?
Well, I just wanted to add to what the commissioner was giving you information on there. Yes, the first 65 million, which was a projection from the county staff, has specific categories it has to go to, and it's mainly a reimbursement program for all the expenditures that have gone on directly related to COVID-19. That needs to be the Treasury Department put out guidelines on what it can be used for. It cannot be used for governmental revenue shortfalls. That's an absolute no at this point in time. So it has to be reimbursable expenses that have occurred or things that are occurring right now as it relates to that. The city managers are beginning a conversation with the county manager relative to that balance, what it could be used for. Obviously, the business community is a focal point of that, but we're probably going to have some input to the county commission for that July meeting relative to assistance to the business community.
Okay, so a couple of questions has there been any thought to allocating some of those funds toward qualified nonprofits? That way they can help disperse funds into the community for families and all others who may need it.
We haven't had any of those. We haven't had any of those discussions yet, but it's possible. Again, we have not started figuring out what we're going to do yet. We did not have enough information, in all fairness, the other night, and county staff's trying to put this together. But as the gentleman before me just stated, that we are going to be looking for input from the municipalities and leadership and trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so that's why it's so important that you guys give us information also, because I hope we make the best decisions and I hope we get this money out as quickly as we can to the right places.
Okay, great. Is there any?
Marcia?
Yes.
Just one more piece of information. As an example of what other communities are doing, you can go and look at Duval County and see what they have done. I believe they have a business interruption grant program. That's a good example and one that I have looked at that they're moving to put in place.
Yeah, there's several counties around the state and certainly around the country that have put in small grant application, opportunities for small businesses. So we're definitely, those are on our radar and will be part of the input. Mayor Capote, I just want to circle back to you if you're still on the call and see if there's any thought or any final comments that you may have. Hang on a second. There you are.
Okay, that's it. You got me back.
Yep, you're back.
No, basically I'm just gonna echo everybody's words, is that the 105, as the county sees allocating that money, cities will work to make it happen with the residents. I think the Space Coast League, as municipalities, we look towards the county because we didn't meet that threshold of having 500,000 residents in our community. So they were able to apply for it. So now we have to work with them in order to make things happen. And like Jim said, the city managers are meeting with the county manager, and we'll make it happen that way.
Beautiful, thank you. Just a couple of comments that I've seen come through the chat that I just want to bring up just for everybody, for everybody's awareness. There is a couple of folks who've talked about what the thoughts are about enforcing guidelines as businesses return to open. That's obviously going to require more focus. Do you guys see, I mean, how are you even thinking about addressing that? I think the consumer confidence thing again, that people feel like businesses are adhering to the CDC recommendation. Does anybody have any comments on that? I mean, I know that you guys have done a great job of not trying to be flexible with businesses that are trying to operate, but do you have any comments about how you'll be working with businesses and monitoring, if any, businesses related to enforcement of the CDC recommendations and social distancing and all that kind of stuff? Anybody have any comment?
I do know, Marcia, that whenever someone is doing something they shouldn't, I'm getting flooded with emails. So that's made it pretty easy. And then what we typically do is we'll send out the sheriff. I know municipalities are doing it with this lead. And then they take a look, and if usually after a conversation with the business, they really just didn't know they were doing something and they fix it. Our community has been amazing. So I haven't seen a whole lot of issues with it, although there could be, but I think some things are in place to help with it. But I don't think we're going to really have a real bad problem with it. But I'd be interested in what the municipalities are seeing. But countywide, it's been pretty easy to maintain.
All right. Nancy, I know you had a question for Commissioner Pritchett.
Yes, I was just wondering, so if the chamber sent out a collective survey, Rita, what are two of the major questions that you would want us to ask?
Well, with this lump of money, and again, everybody needs to go and research it and give us ideas. We really didn't have enough information to do it, and I'm really A-type. I really need to know where it's going and why. And so if you guys say, look, businesses are really suffering with this, we need zero interest loans, that might be some ideas. What do the businesses need to keep themselves in business and help them get through this tough time of a lack of revenues? I'd be very interested in creative ideas. It might be get rid of the impact fees. That might not even affect you, so it might be something different you need. That's what I'm looking for, is how we're going to allocate this money in a way that we feel good with the money and get it into your hands as quick as possible.
Thank you.
Just Can I interject something to Nancy in regards to the survey? Marsha? Am I able to be listened to?
you're on.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because in one of the questions, I guess, we know that there was a first round and second round for the PPE. And these monies are for those people, to me, that didn't qualify, weren't able to qualify at all, because I know there's certain businesses in Palm Bay. So I think one of the questions should be asked is, did you receive, did you qualify in the first round? Well, second round. Did you hear me, Nancy?
Yes, no, that'd be great.
I heard you. Yep.
Actually, chambers weren't qualified, so being a
Because I know people that
501c6, none
have
of us
not
qualified for
qualified
any funds.
for either round. So I think that should be the target audience.
Okay. Okay.
And with that, if I could just piggyback off of that, I know that the commission will make a lot of these decisions on July 6th to a small business that did not qualify for either round and has been waiting, let alone the unemployment mess. Is there anything that is being worked on in the interim that maybe we can assist with? Because July 6th, is a long time for someone that has been sitting with no help. And that's part of this, is how long it goes. So I was just curious if there was anything being considered for the businesses that are hurting right now that might not make it till July 6th even.
We tried to maneuver some of the money, but we only had a 3-person vote to do it with, as far as the people not having the housing and the food. So I think that is going to be something that will be discussed on July 5th. I'm really sorry, but we weren't given enough information to be able to do those things at this time. But, it could get moved up too if we get enough information before then, just so you know.
Thank
So
you.
are you saying you're not getting enough information from the government about how the funds can be dispersed? Or where are you not getting enough information from?
No, we've got that. I mean, we know how we can disperse them. It's got to be COVID related. But you can't just arbitrarily just, put funds out without knowing where the need is right now. We're going to have to be responsible to answer to all you guys too, if we don't designate it out properly. So, it's $44 million. We're going to have to get the data back on how we're going to distribute this. And I'm really counting a lot on local government getting with the county government, and you guys come out with that plan for the small businesses. I think I'm really going to be looking forward to hearing what you guys think you want.
Okay. Sorry, I had a glitch on my computer, so I logged in.
Okay, I thought I'd make you mad. You hung up on me.
Well, isn't there protocols though, since this money has been sent to, every state? I would think that there has to be some kind of protocols that have already been set up so everybody doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, and just finding whatever is acceptable to the county commissioners in terms of what you think would be best to spend the money on. So, I mean, is somebody doing research, I guess, on what other counties what protocols they're putting in place, because they would already be established? Like I said, everybody's in the same boat and everybody has this money and they all have to come up with protocols, and you would think that, some have been already doing this, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I know Orlando was talking about some of they were giving out loans and that kind of thing, not loans, actually grants to business. And so there are other areas that I'm sure we could maybe piggyback on their information and whatever is going to be acceptable to the county commissioners to pass, so that, you're not having to, like I said, reinvent all this.
Marcia?
Yes.
It's Jim McKnight. To answer Nancy's question, based on our conversation yesterday with the managers, including Frank Abate, that is what they're doing right now. They're trying to figure that all out, because one of the things, it's kind of like FEMA funding. We have to know, we have to have an audit trail for anything we do, because they're coming back eventually to do an audit on whatever we expend. So they're trying to do it correctly, and it may require a third-party administrator to do it, because county staff's not really set up for that type of program. So my recommendation is to provide input, Nancy, to the county manager's office on what y'all believe are going to be the highest priorities for business support.
And I think I just want to add to what Jim just said, and that's going to be, it goes federal, county, cities, and whoever gets it needs to keep accountability of how they spent it. Because when the federal government comes in, they don't only want to know how the county gave it to the municipality, they also want to know the recipient, and how the recipient, they could get, the audit could become that specific. So whoever receives it needs to keep accountability how they spent it.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an important component to it, is the tracking. And that was one of the questions, actually, was about transparency of the funds, and will there be public record of how that will all be dispersed and who received those funds. So do any of you want to comment? Commissioner Pritchett, do you want to comment towards that?
Yes, ma'am. There will definitely be transparency and great trails of where all the money is going to. That's what I know the commission, we're not even going to start distributing until we know where it's going. It's going to the right places. And I have great confidence that the cities are going to do their work and give us good information also as we're coming together. And you know what? I know you think there's patterns in place, but there's not. I can't remember a time the federal government's ever given us $109 million before. So this is really new territory. You guys know that. This is all brand new, and we're trying to get footing on it. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the way the local government's working together and doing their best to do this right and do it well. So kudos to you guys out there. I think you're just great heroes, and thank you.
Great. Okay. From my counterparts, is there any other questions that you think we need to address? I think we've covered, I think there's lots of chat things here. We definitely know that there are industries that have not been released to open yet, that are struggling. The county and the municipalities, I think, have said today they're following the governor's recommendations on reopening guidelines, and then we're in the process of determining how and if relief funds on a county or level might be made available to small businesses, but they're working through that process. So I don't see any other major questions at this point, and so I would just look to my, like I said, Michael, Nancy, Jen, if there's not, I'm seeing those. If there's nothing else, I want to thank everybody. I want to particularly thank Commissioner Pritchett, Mayor Capote, Jim Knight, Scott Larice, Walt Johnson, Samantha Singer, and then of course the Office of Tourism and the EDC for jumping on the call and providing input. I think this was great discussion. I think there's a real opportunity as a business community for us to come together and provide input and advice to our elected officials. They're looking for it, they're asking for it, and now's the time for us to work together and step up and provide that necessary input. And I think that this framework of all of us working together is working well thus far, and there's a way that we can continue that conversation in a collaborative manner. So I want to thank all of the partners that have helped us make these webinars available, and all of you for participating today. Again, I'm going to follow up with an email that will have the recording from this webinar in it. And I'm also going to share that staff document from the May 5th meeting so that you can see the staff recommendations or points for deliberation for County Commission. And then we're going to work between now and that July 6th meeting to provide them with data overload and ideas overload so that they can make the best decisions possible to help critical gaps that maybe that exist within our community of those folks and those entities that are not able to get the relief that they need through other programs. So with that, I thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned for the next webinar to be announced. And everybody stay safe and enjoy your weekend.
Likewise.
Thanks, everyone.